Red, cold, expensive red wine poured directly from the top of the young girl's head, staining her pale face and her pristine, white flight attendant uniform. Let's break it down, word by word with precise line breaks. Let's write it now. Red wine, cold and thick, dripped from the top of the young girl's head, staining her pale face and her pristine, white flight attendant uniform. Loud, piercing laughter erupted again, echoing through the luxurious first-class cabin of the private Gulfstream G6R50 jet, flying at 30,000 feet. Vuong Hoang, the notorious billionaire heir, flashed his diamond-encrusted watch in the dim light, resting his expensive leather shoe on the polished mahogany table, his eyes narrowing with pure disgust. You are just a filthy, low-class servant hired to clean my trash. This single glass of wine costs more than your entire family's annual income in that miserable mountain village of yours. Now, get down on your knees. Crawl like a dog. Lick every drop of this wine off my shoes. If you do not, I will make sure you, the Orsiano and Sagara family, vanish from this city by tomorrow morning. Linh stood frozen, her fists clenched so tightly that her fingernails cut deep into her palms, causing blood to mix with the dark red wine pooling on the cabin floor. Around her, Vuong Hoang's wealthy, shallow friends, decked out in designer brands worth thousands of dollars, only held up their phones, recording the scene and laughing with amusement. Not a single person stepped in to stop it. Not a single person looked at Linh as a human being. To them, this probationary flight attendant was nothing more than a cheap, disposable toy. Time seemed to freeze in that moment of absolute humiliation. The low hum of the jet engines outside the window was completely drowned out by the sheer cruelty of their laughter. But none of them knew that, behind her tear-stained, the wine-soaked face, lay a massive, shattering secret. A secret powerful enough to destroy the entire multi-billion-dollar empire of the Vuong family in the blink of an eye. Understand why Linh was standing there during such brutal, soul-crushing humiliation. We must go back 3 months in time. A world far removed from the neon lights and the multi-million-dollar private jets of the elite. It was a poor, isolated village, nestled deep within the Rocky Mountains of the northern border, where thick fog rolled in all year round. The air was bone-chillingly cold. Linh was born and raised in a decaying stilt house, where the only sounds at night were the wind howling through the cracked bamboo walls, the dry coughs of her sick, pale mother. Since childhood, he knew hunger. She knew poverty. And she was used to walking miles through the Rocky Mountain paths with bare, bleeding feet just to get to school. Her mother, a poor ethnic minority woman, toiled day and night on barren cornfields just to keep Linh in school. Linh always promised herself that she would study hard, escape this crushing poverty, and earn enough money to cure her mother's illness. Every single night, under the dim glow of a flickering oil lamp, Linh would read her worn-out, faded books. The soft rustling of pages, mingled with the endless chirping of crickets in the tall grass, became her only companions during those long, difficult years. Her relentless determination finally paid off when she won a full scholarship to a prestigious university in the city. Then, the turning point of her life arrived when a world-renowned private aviation firm announced recruitment for an elite cabin crew. Linh submitted her application with a burning hope that this job would finally change her family's fate. To prepare for the rigorous selection process, Linh endured the months of brutal training, much like a soldier in an army. She woke up at 4 in the morning, long before the morning fog could clear, practicing her balance with a heavy book on her head until her neck grew numb and her legs shook with exhaustion. She learned how to smile with absolute centimeter, perfect precision in front of a mirror, and how to handle the most difficult, rude passengers with grace. However, the world of the wealthy was not as glamorous as she had dreamed. From her very first day at the training center, Linh faced cold stares and whispered insults from her wealthy, privileged peers. They gossiped behind her back, mocking the dark complexion of a mountain girl, sneering at the cheap, worn-out clothes she wore on her first day. They deliberately assigned her the most exhausting night shifts and forced her to clean up the messy training rooms after every practical session. Yet, Linh never uttered a single word of complaint. Whenever she felt tired or wanted to give up, she would think of her mother's hollow, wrinkled face back home, the dry cornfields, her dream of saving her family from misery. She would wipe the sweat from her forehead, smile, and continue her work with quiet dignity and patience. She did not know Vuong Hoang, that her quiet resilience and flawless work ethic had already caught the eye of the supreme chairman of the aviation group, who had been secretly monitoring the trainees. And then, the fateful day arrived when Linh was assigned to serve on the exclusive private flight of the arrogant heir, Vuong Hoang. Sagrada Familia, a flight that would drag her dignity down to the absolute depths of humiliation, but would also become the spark for a legendary, unstoppable storm of karma. 3 months after completing her brutal, soul-crushing training, Linh found herself standing in the galley of the most expensive private jet in the world, a Gulfstream G650. The cabin was a masterpiece of modern luxury, with cream-colored Italian leather seats, hand-polished walnut wood panels, soft, warm, ambient lighting that made everything look like pure gold. This flight was not for regular passengers. It was chartered by Vuong Hoang, a 24-year, old, sole heir to the massive Vuong Hoang conglomerate. Real estate empire worth billions of dollars. Vuong Hoang was notorious for his wild, excessive lifestyle, his absolute contempt for anyone he deemed beneath him. With him on the flight were three of his closest, equally arrogant friends, all born with silver spoons and accustomed to treating the world as their personal playground. The private jet taxied down the runway, its powerful engines roaring as it lifted smoothly into the stormy evening sky. Outside, thick dark clouds clashed with heavy rain. Inside the cabin, it was a sanctuary of elite comfort, warm and silent. Linh adjusted her uniform, her heart pounding against her chest, knowing that serving this specific group required absolute perfection. She walked into the cabin carrying a silver tray with crystal glasses, her face displaying the flawless, polite smile she had practiced thousands of times. Good evening, Mr. Vuong, and honored guests, Linh said, her voice soft, steady, and respectful. Welcome aboard. I am Linh, your lead flight attendant for today's journey. Please, let me know if there is anything I can do to make your flight more comfortable. Vuong Hoang did not even look up from his phone, his fingers sliding across the screen as he let out a cold, bored sigh. Bring us the bottle of 1945 Romane Conti. Do it fast, he ordered, his tone dripping with lazy authority. Oh, and make sure the glasses are chilled to exactly 4 degrees. If it is a single degree off, I will have you fired before we cross the coastline. Linh kept her smile steady, though her fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the silver tray. Yeah. Yes, Mr. Vuong, I will prepare that for you immediately. She replied, bowing her head slightly before turning back to the galley. Behind her, she could hear the quiet, mocking snickers of Vuong Hoang's friends. Look at her, one of them whispered, not even trying to hide his voice. Where did the company find this one? She looks like she belongs in a muddy rice field, not on a high-end private charter. Vuong Hoang let out a harsh, dry laugh, swiping his hand through the air. Who cares? As long as she knows her place and does what she is told. She is just another servant we pay to look pretty. In the galley, Linh closed her eyes for a brief second, taking a deep, shaky breath to calm the rising anger in her chest. She reminded herself of her mother, of the hospital bills, the promise she made to survive this toxic world. She carefully opened the vintage bottle of wine, the rich, dark liquid pouring smoothly into the chilled crystal glasses. She walked back into the cabin, carefully balancing the tray, her eyes focused on every step to ensure not a single drop was spilled. Thus, she approached Vuong Hoang first, bending her knees slightly to present the glass at the perfect angle. Your wine, Mr. Vuong, chilled to your exact preference, she said softly. Vuong Hoang finally looked up, his cold, arrogant eyes scanning Linh from head to toe, lingering on her simple, unbranded watch. He did not reach for the glass. Instead, he deliberately leaned back into his leather seat, crossing his arms. "No, hold it right there," he said, a cruel, playful smirk spreading across his face. "My hands are busy. Give it to me." Linh froze, the heavy cool glass trembling slightly in her hand as the raw humiliation of his request hit her. "Mr. Vuong, according to safety regulations, I am not permitted to." Vuong Hoang's expression instantly turned dark, his eyes snapping with sudden, vicious anger. "Did I ask you about regulations? You pathetic servant. I paid for this entire plane, which means I paid for your time, your obedience, and your silence. Now, do what I said, or you can test your luck jumping out of this plane at 30,000 feet. The atmosphere inside the first-class cabin instantly turned ice cold, as the heavy silence was broken only by the low, vicious chuckle of Vuong Hoang. Linh stood her ground, her eyes fixed on the floor, then refusing to look at the monster sitting in front of her. "I said," Vuong Hoang spoke again, his voice dropping to a dangerous, low whisper, "feed me the wine. Are you deaf? Or are you just stupid?" Linh took a deep breath, forcing her voice to remain professional, even as her heart battered against her ribs. "Mr. Vuong, I am highly committed to your comfort, but feeding passengers is against our strict safety protocols, especially during turbulent weather." Vuong Hoang's face twisted with immediate, ugly rage. He stood up so fast his leather chair scraped loudly against the floor, making his friends gasp in mock excitement. "Who do you think you are talking to? You are a servant. Nothing more. I bought this plane. I bought this flight. And I bought you for the next 10 hours. He took a step closer, his towering figure casting a dark shadow over Linh. Before Linh could react, Vuong Hoang deliberately reached out, swiped his hand across her silver tray. The heavy, expensive crystal glasses went flying, smashing violently against the mahogany partition, shattering into 1,000 glittering pieces. At the exact same moment, Vuong Hoang grabbed the half-empty bottle of Romanée Conti and poured the thick, dark red liquid directly over Ling's head. The cold sour wine drenched her hair, running down her forehead, staining her clean white uniform, dripping onto the plush carpet. The entire cabin erupted into wild, heartless laughter. "Look at her," one of Vuong Hoang's friends shouted, pointing his phone camera directly at Ling's face. "She looks like a drowned rat." "This is going viral on my story." Ling stood frozen, the cold wine stinging her eyes, the sheer weight of the humiliation crushing her chest. But she did not cry. She kept her head up, her eyes locking onto Vuong Hoang with a sudden "Yea, la Sagrada Familia," sharp intensity that made the smirk on his face flicker for a split second. "Get down on your knees," Vuong Hoang sneered, his ego demanding total submission. "Roll like the dog you are. Lick every single drop of this wine off my leather shoes. If you do not do it right now, I will call your manager and ensure you never get a job in this country again. You and your poor, miserable family will starve in your muddy village." The elite friends laughed harder, encouraging the abuse. "Do it," one of them yelled. "Lick the shoes." Ling looked at the red wine pooling on the floor, mixed with the shattered glass. She looked at Vuong Hoang's expensive, arrogant face, flashing his diamond watch. This was the absolute peak of their cruelty. This was the moment they thought they had destroyed her. But what they did not know was that they had just sealed their own doom. The sound of shattering glass still echoed. The stench of cheap amusement hung heavy in the air. Yet, the cold wine, dripping from Ling's face, did not break her spirit. She did not bend. She did not cry. She did not drop to her knees. Slowly, with an eerie, believable calmness that made the laughter in the cabin die down, she raised her hand. She did not reach for a cloth to wipe herself. Instead, she calmly reached for the small, silver pin on her collar, the standard insignia of the flight crew. Vuong Hoang watched her, his sneer freezing, his hand still holding the empty bottle of wine. "Ah, what are you doing? You worthless trash?" he snapped, trying to regain his dominant posture. "Are you deaf?" I said. "Get down on your knees." Lin did not answer him. Instead, she gently pressed the small, sealed button on the side of the silver pin. Tiny, brilliant blue light flickered twice on the insignia, indicating an active, encrypted satellite feed. This was no ordinary pin. It was a custom-made, military-grade communication device linked directly to the executive boardroom of Global Star Aviation, the very parent company that owned this entire private fleet. Sagrada Familia, an elite encrypted channel designed only for members of the founding family. A cold, deep voice suddenly broadcasted through the entire cabin's surround sound speakers, cutting through the silence like a blade. "Transmission secured," the speaker boomed, connecting directly to Chairman Nguyen. Vuong Hoang's friends gasped, some of them instantly dropping their phones, their faces turning pale. Vuong Hoang's heart skipped a beat, his arrogant eyes widening as he stared at the flashing light on Lin's chest. "What is this?" he stammered, backing away slightly. "What joke is this?" Lin looked him straight in the eyes, her voice no longer polite, no longer submissive, but cold, sharp, dripping with absolute authority. "Other," Lin said clearly into the pin. The inspection is complete. The client, on Charter 409, Vuong Hoang, has breached multiple international safety codes, verbally assaulted staff, destroyed company property, demanded physical humiliation. I have recorded every single second on the encrypted stream. From the other end of the line. The voice of Chairman Huen, the billionaire, a tycoon who controlled the skies, responded with an icy, furious tone. Understood, my daughter. No one insults Nguyen plainly, and no one endures such filth under my name. Initiating emergency protocol Omega 7 immediately. Vuong Hoang's jaw dropped. His knees trembling as the reality of the situation crashed down upon his privileged head. His friends scrambled back to their seats. Zidier, frantically trying to delete the videos they had just recorded. Now realizing they had just documented a crime against the daughter of a trillionaire. You are, Vuong Hoang choked, his face draining of all color. You are Linh Nguyen, the youngest daughter of the chairman. Ling smiled a cold, beautiful, and terrifying smile. She wiped a drop of red wine from her cheek. Yes, Mr. Vuong, she said softly. The power, dynamic, shifting completely in a fraction of a second. You just poured wine on the owner of this plane. Cabin air grew thin, almost suffocating, as the realization of Ling's true identity settled over the room like a heavy, frozen fog. Vuong Hoang took another step back, his foot catching on the edge of the plush carpet, nearly sending him sprawling onto the floor. His hand shook violently. The empty wine bottle, slipping from his finger, landing on the soft rug with a dull, meaningless stood. Ling stood perfectly still, the red wine slowly dripping from her chin onto her collar. Yet her posture was as straight as a queen on her coronation. Suddenly the high-pitched chime of the aircraft's internal communication system rang out, sharp and alarming. The voice of the chief pilot, usually calm and reassuring, now crackled through the speakers with a trembling urgency. Attention, passengers. This is the flight deck. We have received an emergency. High priority. Command from Global Star Command Center. Signed directly by Chairman Nguyen. All civilian clearance for this charter has been revoked. We are entering military-controlled airspace, initiating immediate maximum descent angle. Prepare for landing at Cam Rang military base. Vuong Hoang's eyes bulged, his breath catching in his throat as the nose of the massive Gulf Stream G650 tilted downward. San Jose, the sudden change in pressure made the cups on the tables rattle. As the luxury jet cut through the stormy clouds, descending at a terrifying speed. No, this is a mistake. Vuong Hoang screamed, his voice cracking, shorn of all its previous wealth, fueled bravado. He scrambled toward his phone, his fingers slipping over the screen as he tried to call his father. president of the Vuong Hoang conglomerate. The phone rang twice before his father's voice boomed through the speaker, sounding frantic, angry, and completely defeated. "Hoang, what did you do?" his father roared, his voice echoing with pure panic. "What did you do? What did you do on that plane?" "Father, I I just had a small misunderstanding with a flight attendant." "Misunderstanding?" his father screamed, cutting him off instantly. "Global Star Aviation just cancelled our corporate flight privileges worldwide. But that is not all," dijo. "The Wing Group has just terminated all 22 logistics and supply chain contracts with our conglomerate, effective immediately. Our stocks are free falling. We are losing 500 billion VND every second. They are calling in our bank loans. We are ruined, Hoang. We are completely ruined." The phone call suddenly cut to static, leaving being nothing but the cold, dead hum of the descending jet. Vuong Hoang's friends looked at him in absolute horror, their faces pale, their hands trembling as they realized their association with him had just cost them everything. The plane hit the runway with a hiriwarebe, powerful thud, the reverse thrusters roaring like angry beasts as the private jet ground to a halt. Sagrafung outside the window, flashing red and blue lights of military and private security vehicles painted the wet asphalt in a chaotic glow. The heavy cabin door unsealed, hissing loudly as it lowered to the ground. A line of 6 tall, imposing security guards in tailored black suits stepped onto the plane, led by the chief legal officer of Global Star Aviation. Vuong Hoang stood frozen, his mouth half open, Melai, as the lead guard stepped past him without even a glance, bowing deeply, gently, respectfully to Linh. "We are here, Miss Nguyen," the officer said, his voice firm. "The path is clear." The heavy, armored boots of the security team stepped inside the cabin, their synchronized movement creating a terrifying, low vibration against the floorboards. Vuong Hoang felt his legs turn to water, Sagra Familia, his hands clutching the armrest of his leather seat just to keep himself from collapsing. The chief legal officer, Lefioigni, carrying a sleek black leather folder with the golden seal of Nguyen Group, stood directly in front of him. "Mr. Vuong Hoang," the officer said, his voice smooth, chilled, and completely devoid of any human warmth. "Effective exactly 4 minutes ago, a direct order of Chairman Nguyen, Ilieda. Your family's conglomerate is no longer a partner of Global Star Aviation. Furthermore, the legal department of Nguyen Group has officially filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against you, personally. The charges include criminal damage to luxury property, reckless endangerment of an active flight crew, severe verbal assault." Vuong Hoang looked around frantically, his eyes begging his wealthy friends for help. for a word, for anything. But they had all retreated to the very back of the plane, keeping their heads down, refusing to make eye contact with him. Sagrada Familia. The very people who were laughing and filming just moments ago were now treating him like a biohazard. Please. Vuong Hoang suddenly burst out, shaking, his voice cracking into a desperate whine. I didn't know who you were. It was just a joke. We were just having some fun. I swear. I will pay for everything. 10 times the cost. Just please, tell your father to stop the lawsuits. Ling stood there, a towering figure of quiet strength, the red wine still glistening on her hair. Yet, she looked more powerful than any royalty. She did not look at him with anger. Instead, she looked at him with a cold, profound pity. You would pay 10 times the cost? She asked softly. Elia, her voice echoing in the dead silence of the cabin. But you see, Mr. Vuong, some things cannot be bought, like the dignity of the people who serve you, like the respect you stripped away from every worker you ever looked down upon. She took a slow, deliberate step toward him, her eyes locking onto his trembling frame. Your wealth made you believe you were a god, she whispered. Today, you will learn what it feels like to be nothing. The chief legal officer stepped forward, uncapping a heavy, gold-plated fountain pen and sliding a document onto the mahogany table. Because of your breach of safety protocols, he announced, your family has been placed on the global aviation blacklist. Sele, you are permanently banned from boarding any commercial or private aircraft operated by our alliance worldwide. And as of this moment, all logistics contracts supplying your father's factories have ceased. Your cargo is currently being offloaded at every major port. And your warehouses will go empty by tomorrow morning. Vuong Hoang's eyes rolled back in sheer shock, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps as his phone began to vibrate relentlessly in his hand. It was a barrage of news alerts. The stock price of Vuong Hoang conglomerate was plunging into a historic abyss. Billions of dollars of family wealth evaporating in real time. All because of one glass of wine poured in a moment of arrogant fury. He fell to his knees. Cold, wet red wine on the carpet, soaking into his expensive designer trousers. He reached out, trying to grab the hem of Ling's uniform, his face covered in sweat and tears. Please, I will beg. I will do anything. He sobbed, his pride completely shattered into dust. Ling stepped back, avoiding his touch with absolute disgust. The security guards moved in instantly, grabbing Vuong Hoang by his arms and lifting him effortlessly off the floor. Get him off my plane, Ling said coldly, turning her back on him. The heavy cabin door of the private jet remained open, allowing the cold, wet sea breeze of Cam Ranh to sweep inside, beating the lingering scent of expensive wine and rotten arrogance. Security guards dragged Vuong Hoang down the metal steps, on his knees, scraping against the wet tarmac as he wept, his designer clothes soaked in dirt and rain. His wealthy, shallow friends were escorted off next, their heads bowed in deep shame, their phones confiscated. The men, knowing their luxury lives, had just been shattered by association. Linh stood at the top of the air stair, watching the chaotic scene unfold below. A sleek, black military-grade helicopter with the Golden Wing insignia hovered nearby, its rotors creating a powerful wind that blew her hair back. The chief of ground security stepped up, holding a warm, clean white towel and a fresh change of clothes for her. "Your transport is ready, Miss Wayne," he said, with deep respect. Linh took the towel, gently, wiping the last traces of the red wine from her face. Her skin glowing clean in the harsh airport lights. She looked down at the shivering, broken figure of Vuong Hoang on the tarmac one last time. She did not feel anger anymore, only the quiet satisfaction of justice served. She turned around, walking toward her private helicopter with firm, confident steps, leaving the trash behind where it belonged. The luxury jet was silent now. Sagrada Familia, a metal cage that had witnessed the ultimate fall of an elite empire. This story is not just about a spoiled heir getting his karma. It's about the silence of the crowd. If Linh had really been just a poor, struggling flight attendant with no powerful family to save her, Sagrada Familia, she would have been forced to crawl on that floor. She would have had to lick those shoes. While the elite laughed, and the world looked away. So, ask yourself this. If you were sitting in that cabin, sang, watching a human being get humiliated for entertainment, what would you have done? Would you have held up your phone and laughed along with the rich, just to feel like you belonged to their circle? Or would you have had the courage to stand up, risk your own job, stop the abuse? We becoming a society that worships wealth so much that we are willing to sacrifice our basic humanity just to catch a crumb from their table. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, because your silence is what keeps monsters like Vuong Hoang alive. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support justice, and we will see you in the next story.